Three music lovers all shared a dream: a symphony orchestra whose musicians would perform golden musical compositions with breathtaking harmony and unity. So they recruited a variety of instrumentalists, named the group the Concordians, and began serving as its board of directors. The first concerts amazed everyone. Audiences raved at how the violins, oboes, French horns, trumpets, and timpani all blended into one single glorious listening feast. Word of mouth spread quickly, and soon the Concordians were attracting people far and wide. Members of the orchestra voted to hire an outstanding violinist as their conductor. This violin virtuoso could bring people to laughter or tears with the melodies that flowed from his Stradivarius. At first, this seemed all to the good, but as time passed, audiences complained that the original unity and harmony could no longer be heard in Concordian concerts. Reports of this reached the board of directors, who now lived in a different city. They sent an investigator to evaluate what had changed during the performances. Her report stunned them. Only one instrument was being played, that of the star violinist. Out in the orchestra itself, the instruments remained in their cases. All the other violins, as well as the saxophones, the French horns, the trumpets, the flutes, and the trombones. The investigator ended her report with this recommendation: if the goal is unity and harmony, then give all orchestra members opportunity to play their various parts. The wonderful solo performances of the violinist conductor cannot compare with that breathtaking oneness out of diversity heard in the original concerts. In this way, the founder's dream for the Concordian Orchestra was recovered. All this might remind us of what we could refer to as Jesus' "I have a dream" prayer in John 17. He asked that we, his followers, be brought to complete unity. That demonstrated unity, he said, would open the way for the world to know and to believe God had sent him. In 1 Corinthians 14:22-25, Paul illustrates that prophecy is better than tongues in a church meeting because people understand it. Then he shows us how that works. A non-Christian enters a church meeting. In verse 24, Paul adds an easily missed detail, one we might call the orchestra effect. Everyone is prophesying. Everyone. The unbelieving visitor hears the unified orchestra effect and recognizes God is present. Result: one from the world comes to know and believe. But that was a first century church meeting. How is the orchestra effect doing in the 21st century? Well, it's Sunday, so let's check that out by dropping in on the meeting in First Church. After everyone is seated, Pastor Bill walks to the stage and takes the microphone. He begins by welcoming everyone, especially visitors. If the meeting is being live streamed, he welcomes those online as well. From the welcome, Pastor Bill moves into the announcements, perhaps accompanied by some slides with details about upcoming classes, youth events, or luncheons. Next comes what First Church calls their time of worship. This consists of songs led by a worship team of singers and a worship band. After the music, Pastor Bill takes the stage again to lead the congregation in prayer. He may or may not ask for prayer concerns and may or may not allow a time for silent prayers, but he himself speaks the prayer that is heard by the people. After he has spoken the welcome, the announcements, and the prayer, Pastor Bill brings the sermon. If he's ill or out of town, a guest speaker may preach instead, but on a typical Sunday, Pastor Bill will deliver the sermon. As this happens to be the first Sunday of the month, Pastor Bill steps to the communion table and officiates in the celebration of the Lord's Supper. Then the church meeting ends as it began, with Pastor Bill holding the microphone, this time to offer the benediction. Like the violinist conductor, Pastor Bill occupies center stage during most of the meeting. Some have described this kind of church meeting as a one-man show. Like the instruments of the musicians in the Concordian Orchestra, the gifts of the members of Christ's body lie silent. Their spirit-given insights, questions, words of wisdom, correction, and testimony remained muffled and unheard. Their role in the meeting, to sit passively and to listen silently. If we are going to reach unity, it will involve how we meet. In this section of his first letter to Corinth, Paul points us in three helpful directions. He addresses the purpose of the meeting, the format of the meeting, and the power in the meeting. First, the purpose of the meeting. Church tradition for centuries has answered the purpose question by saying that we gather to worship God. And so we have worship leaders, worship teams, worship songs, worship centers, and worship software. But no, while that looks and sounds spiritual, it's not the primary reason the New Testament gives for our meeting together. Instead, right after his reference to everyone prophesying, Paul explains the purpose of the church meeting. Everything must be done so that the church may be built up. In other words, the primary reason we gather is to strengthen one another in our individual and corporate lives in the Lord. In other places, the New Testament says we are to encourage, serve, greet, forgive, submit to, speak to, admonish, spur on, confess to, build up, and bear with one another. Second, the format of the meeting. Paul speaks of a church visitor who comes to faith after hearing multiple voices in the meeting. Then he points to the sort of meeting format in which that can happen. So here's what I want you to do. When you gather for worship, each one of you be prepared with something that will be useful for all. Sing a hymn, teach a lesson, tell a story, lead a prayer, provide an insight. In other words, Paul calls for a multi-voiced meeting format, the full orchestra, we might say, that displays heaven's unity right here on earth. Each member of Christ's body has a gift, an instrument to play in harmony with and for the benefit of all. As in 1 Corinthians 14:26, the format permits, even encourages, questions, insights, dialogue, teaching, corrections, challenges, affirmations, and so on. Third, the power in the meeting. By itself, restructuring the format of our church meetings will not lead us to unity. What Paul says in 1 Corinthians 14 lies within the larger section about the gifts of the Spirit. Only as we believers are filled with the Holy Spirit will we be able to contribute to the meeting in unifying ways. The key is preparation and expectancy. Knowing that the meeting format will welcome contributions from members of Christ's body, we will pray to be filled again with God's Spirit. We will ask God to use our varied gifts in the meeting for the benefit of all. In other words, we will expect to serve as participants, not merely to observe as spectators. As a one-man show, a church meeting stifles the demonstration of unity that Jesus prayed for. But as members of Christ's body, unified by the Spirit, contributing from our giftedness, we will make heaven's unity visible here on earth.